Sheila wore a long red dress that moved easily in the gentle summer breeze. Her strides along the boardwalk were unhurried, the wood warm beneath her feet. An elderly man on a nearby bench met her eyes, and they shared a small, passing smile. A few steps later, she stopped at the railing and looked out at the river, where the water slid past without sound. Near the river, a small playground came into view, children's voices rising and falling in bright bursts of laughter. Parents stood nearby, speaking in low, drifting fragments, while a dog barked once and then again, its owner calling it back. She continued along the path, passing couples walking hand in hand and others moving with purpose, phones to their ears, conversations unfolding as they went. It almost slipped by without a trace. Without thinking, she caught the edge of a paper beneath her foot and stopped. She knelt, lifting the hem of her dress with one hand, and picked it up. The paper was clean, as though it hadn't been there long. She opened it. Mr. Argyle, please visit at 2 p.m. on Thursday. My address is as follows. The name was unfamiliar, and yet it felt strangely deliberate. Curious, she read the address twice, folded the note, and slipped it into her purse. Her thoughts wandered with each step along the boardwalk, trying to place the street, to recognize the handwriting, or to recall whether she had even known a Mr. Argyle. She smiled at the possibilities. Perhaps it was a pen name belonging to a famous author who would be grateful, handsomely so, for its return. Or maybe it was meant for a piano student, the note lost on the way to a lesson. It was Thursday. The paper looked clean, the ink fresh, as though it hadn't been there long. Her imagination continued to wander until she thought of her friend at the coffee shop and wondered how she was doing. As the breeze tugged at her dress again, the realization arrived quietly. She was supposed to be there 5 minutes ago. She stopped and checked her phone. Now she was 10 minutes away, having drifted farther along the boardwalk than she had noticed while lost in the possibilities of the note. Typing a message to her friend, she increased her gait. Running a little late, walked too far. Genuine guilt settled over her as she approached the coffee shop. On the patio, Nancy smirked at her watch, then looked up. So kind of you to join me. What's his name? It wasn't a man. Oh? Nancy took a slow sip of her coffee. Then what was it that took your attention so easily? Isn't today beautiful? Sheila said, smiling. Be right back. I'm going to go grab my coffee. So the dog's name was Rufus, Sheila began later. He was adorable, handsome, and, yeah, you swooned. Sheila felt her cheeks warm. But still, she said, smiling, isn't today something? The river tamed the heat. I just lost track of time. Didn't you say you walked too far? I helped Rufus find his stick. Apparently the first 20 weren't it. Nancy rolled her eyes, then gave her a knowing look. Why don't you just buy a dog? Sheila shrugged and took a slow sip of her iced coffee, the folded note pressing faintly against the inside of her purse. Roger did it again, Nancy said, her face falling. Who was it this time? 3 names, too many to keep straight in the moment. I don't even remember them all. Next move? That was the next move. I walked out. I didn't call you back last night because I moved in with my mother. She's having knee surgery, and honestly, I needed a real roommate. I think we'll do well together." Sheila felt her face warm again, a quiet smile forming. "I'm relieved." "Yeah, and you've been expecting this for what, 6 months?" "2 months, 3 days, 14 hours and change," Sheila said lightly, "since the house party." "God, how could I forget? Thanks for that." Nancy gave her a soft glare over the rim of her cup. "Welcome. How's it been with your mother?" "Good. You know we never had any problems. I just wish time would stand still with her." "You're strong, Nan. Find a roommate you can live with. Move again when you're ready. Give her space." "Yeah." "What kind of dog should I get?" Sheila asked, changing the subject. "Poodle. You know I can't handle big dogs." "What do you mean? What was Rufus?" "A golden retriever." "There, you handled a big dog. That's all dogs are anyway. Man's best friend for reasons. Nothing's ever good enough. 3 balls in sight and one under the armoire is the one they can't live without." They both giggled. "Punchy. I earned the right." "True." "Let's walk," Nancy said, standing with her coffee. "See how it feels beside the river." Walking beside Nancy, Sheila felt the familiar weight of the note in her purse and, without quite meaning to, remembered the street name. Nancy's mother had once lived there. By the time they reached the river again, it looked the same as before, but she had the faint sense that something had shifted. The light on the water seemed different, as though the afternoon had turned slightly. "Sheila, are you okay?" Nancy glanced over. "You haven't said a thing since we hit the boardwalk." "Like a cat in a window, Nan." Nancy rolled her eyes. "Whatever." "You're not the type to walk when we go for coffee. What's on your mind that you can't get rid of?" "The 3 women." "And?" "I've known one since grade 4." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. The other 2, I don't know their names, but they look familiar too." She gazed out at the river. "I suppose I just have some extra energy to burn off." "Fair. What do your friends think?" "That I should get over it and start dating tomorrow." "You were with him for 10 years," Sheila said quietly. "Dating shouldn't be in the cards." "Agreed, but men." They exchanged a quiet look and continued walking in silence. The note felt heavier than it had a few minutes ago. Sheila realized she could walk to the address after meeting Nancy, if she chose to. Small towns had a way of shrinking distance. She had only learned that after growing up in the city. They sipped their coffees and watched the river, enjoying each other's company as the afternoon drifted by almost unnoticed. The hum of the area softened, people peeling away to their own evenings. After 2 half-turns up and down the boardwalk, and long after their coffees were finished, the women shared an embrace and parted ways. To keep Nancy unaware, Sheila started toward home, taking a familiar alternate route. Once out of sight, she sat on a bench and considered the address again. She folded the note once more, as though that might fold the decision with it. It was 3 o'clock. If today was the day, Mr. Argyle would already be late. She wondered whether arriving with the note would feel intrusive, whether the person who had written it would take offense. A smile slowly lifted her face. She thought of Nancy's mother baking empanadas, of sitting on the back porch with lemonade and rum, of paella every holiday. The house stood clearly in her mind, a small bungalow with 2 bedrooms, a kitchenette, and a modest living area. but the presence of an immigrant mother and her children had always felt larger than the space itself. There was still time. She could reach the address. Pride had never been her obstacle, only initiative. She was soft, perhaps too soft for the area, but her years around Nancy's family had shaped her in ways she rarely noticed. She stood, unfolded the note, and read the address once more. She took a slow breath through her nose and set off, remembering the feeling of ringing that doorbell years ago, being met by the warm scent of baking and the sound of voices layered over one another. Confidence settled into her legs, and her stride lengthened. The street appeared as the note had promised, but she hadn't considered how long it was. 10 full blocks, and she could no longer remember how the numbering worked. Still, she began walking, passing one house after another, only occasionally glancing at the numbers so she wouldn't look as though she were searching for something she didn't belong to. Curtains shifted in open windows, and wind chimes clicked softly above shaded porches. She felt as though soft eyes were watching her pass, and memories surfaced with each familiar view. A fence, a gate, the stairs leading up to the house where Nancy's mother once lived. Curtains shifted in open windows, and wind chimes clicked softly above shaded porches. She felt as though soft eyes were watching her pass, and memories surfaced with each familiar view. A fence, a gate, the stairs leading up to the house where Nancy's mother once lived. The paint was peeling now, door hinges sagging, windows cracked. There were no signs of life. She continued on, remembering the numbering system again, her pace smooth and decisive, the address settling into her mind as if she carried it for years. 3 blocks later she arrived. Music drifted through the walls of the house. Children singing in a small, uneven chorus, a single piano setting the pitch for their practice. She touched the note and checked the time again. 3:30. She looked down one end of the quiet street, then the other, gathering what little courage she needed to approach the house. For a moment, she wondered if it would be better to leave the note and go home. She didn't have to be here. But she was here now, and there was no time like the present. Approaching the door, the piano stumbled into a new scale, and a child laughed. Curtains were drawn. No one knew she was there. She took one last breath and knocked. "What?" an adult voice called from inside. "My name is Sheila. I found a note with your address on it." "So?" "It was addressed to a Mr. Argyle." There was a pause. 3 deadbolts clicked, followed by a handle. The door opened to a woman, short in stature, a toothpick moving thoughtfully at the corner of her mouth, dressed in clothing that felt borrowed from another decade. "Let me see that." She took the note from Sheila's hand. "So that's why he didn't show. He owes me $20. "Lovely singing," Sheila said. "Are you an instructor or is this a community choir?" The woman looked her up and down. "Community teacher. Piano, singing, guitar, oboe." "I used to sing years ago. It's lovely to hear practice again. I can leave you to it." "Not yet. Come in, sit a while." Her voice softened when she realized Sheila wasn't there to cause trouble. 15 minutes passed as the children continued their recital. Laughter rose and fell, and Sheila sat in quiet awe of the talent before her. Effortless melodies, earnest concentration, young personalities unfolding in sound. As the session wrapped up, the children thanked their teacher and left the waiting parents. The woman locked the door and motioned for Sheila to join her in the kitchen. "Mr. Argyle is a piano tuner. He wanted lessons, so I agreed. Cash up front is my policy. I could have filled that time with a paying client. Is there any way to find him? Can I help? The woman prepared tea and sat across from her at a small kitchen table. No need. $20 would be useful in my position, but I can live without it. Can I give you the money? Sheila accepted the cup with a small smile. I'm not rich, but I do have it. The woman looked at her for a moment, eyes bright. Generous, but unnecessary. Mr. Argyle owes me. I'll collect later. The woman turned to the cupboard for sugar, then to the fridge for cream. While her back was turned, Sheila slid a $20 bill beneath the placemat under the teapot, then folded her hands as if nothing had happened. Sheila held her cup and listened, feeling as though the day had given her something she hadn't asked for. She listened to the woman's story, coming from China, losing her husband, finding connection in a part of town people rarely noticed. The money faded from her mind. The address, too, dissolved into conversation. After 4 cups of tea, 4 for Sheila, she thought with mild amusement, they exchanged quiet goodbyes, and she stepped back onto the street. She walked toward home with a small, steady smile, carrying the warmth of an afternoon shared with a perfect stranger.